Hello, today we are doing a graph analysis. So these are the graphs you will be getting at the exam. These are small graphs actually, graph knowledge actually I'm giving you now. In our MCQ paper actually we'll be getting at least 10 to 12 graph type questions. So this is not basically about the graphs, but the representation is done through the graphs. So you should know how to analyze the graph and you should know the theory as well, right? So this is the first type of graph you are getting. The easiest one, y equals mx graph. Then y equals mx plus c graph. The c is the intercept, m is the gradient, right? Then y equals mx minus c graph, negative intercept, and then y equals minus mx graph, y equals minus mx minus c graph, y equals minus mx plus c graph, right? These are the basic ones, right? Other than this, yes, this is the other one, y equals x squared graph, increasing gradient. Remember that the gradient is varying and it is increasing, right? The second one, the decreasing gradient, y equals root x graph, and then y equals 1 over x graph. These kind of graphs actually you have to analyze. Actually, when analyzing graphs like that, you have to see where x goes. When x is at infinity, y becomes 0, and when x is 0, y is infinity. And some other questions actually you will be getting questions like where there's a certain where x is 0, y has a value, and when x is infinity, y is 0, something like that. So these type of questions are also there. All right students, actually other than the things actually we discussed earlier, these are the things actually you should know when doing a graph question. Actually, when doing a graph question, there are lots of things you should know. So from a basic graph question you should know these things, right? So let's look at the question, look at the graph actually I'm using here I'm using y equals mx plus c graph, right? So here the gradient, the intercept is c, so that means where x is 0, the value of y. Actually, if you cannot figure out the proper equation for the graph, what you have to look at is the value of x and value of y. So you have to look at what is the value of x, where x is 0, what is the value of y. From things like this actually you can get to the answer, right? Again, then the gradient, so it's negative gradient. Basically we find the gradient by dividing the y difference from x difference, right? So y divided by x is basically the gradient, right? You should know these things, right? Now we know the gradient, now we know the intercept, and from a graph actually there's another thing we can get out of is the area. Basically the area will give y value, the y value multiplied by the value given in x. So this multiplication is giving us the area. From the area actually we can find the multiply of y and x. So it can be force and time. If it's force and time, think force and time, F into T, that is mv, change in momentum, right? So things like that actually, F into D, that's work. So from the area you can find many things from a graph. So gradient and gradient, intercept, area, these are the things actually you should look at when doing a graph. I am showing you actually another point. Actually when doing graph questions, actually see, you have come to the answers. Now you have two answers, one or two, one of these two are correct, right? You need to figure out which one is correct. The shape is same, right? So here the only difference is value of y. Value of y can be 0 here and value of y cannot be 0 here. So you have to look into things like that. Make x 0, see what is y, make y 0, see what is x, or something like that. So try these type of method. If you practice this method, you can easily get to a graph question, or you can analyze the graph and then get into the question. Students, I'm showing you actually small question how to use the graph analysis and getting the answer actually. So let's read the question. A ball of mass 0.5 kilogram which is initially at rest is struck by a bat. The variation of force on the ball with time is shown in the figure. The speed of the ball when it leaves the bat. So here from the graph actually what we should get is area F into T. From F into T we are getting delta mv. So change in momentum. Let's try to find the area. So it's a triangle. So half into 2 into 2, basically we are getting 2, right? So they are telling mass mv is 2. So mass is 0.5 v. So v basically that is 2 divided by 0.5, that's 4 ms minus 1. That's an easy question, yes, but I'm just showing you the method how to use the graph analysis in a question. So practice questions, you will be really familiar with these type of things, because we are getting lots of questions, at least 10 questions in the MCQ paper. So if you have time, go through with the papers and do the questions. Students, if you could find the right combination, right things, right theory behind these graph questions, you can easily do the questions. So just go through with the small tips actually I gave you. If you are familiar with these type of methods, actually you can easily do the question, right? And also increasing graph, decreasing graph, just be familiar with these methods and find questions and practice it. You can easily do these questions, because we'll be getting few questions in the MCQ paper. You should always be prepared with those type of questions. Unless you might know the theory but you don't know how to analyze the graph, so you cannot get the answer. That's in vain. So what I'm suggesting you to go with the playlist, find questions, find question models and do the questions. And if you think those questions are a bit difficult, what you have to do is you have to find similar questions from the books and tudes and practice a lot.